Hi, everyone. Howie here. Welcome to the Howie Hain Radio Live Show. Marie is with me. Today is Thursday, February 13th. It's 12:30 Eastern Time, New York time. We have so many. I'm gonna. All right, this is ready. I've been going on X, okay, and it's a whole new world to me. I gotta say, it's like it really is like the cat who knocked over the jar of the treats, and it's just keeps eating them all, and is like laying on his belly, laying on his back with his belly up in the air, because you don't know what to look at. There's so much going on. So okay, but I gathered myself yesterday. I took a day, and I took Lori to get treated for. She's almost done with her treatment. God willing, and I had a funny story. She's just about to start the show, and she's a teacher, and something funny, So she's doing chemo, and when she does like a several chemo at the place, and then there's like a bag she takes home with her, like for another 48 hours, and she wears it like on her stomach, like a fanny pack. And she teaches second grade, and one of the little girls says to her, well, every 2 weeks, she has this bag thing, and it's like, she wears like a fleece or a sweater or something that covers it up, and the little girl the little girl comes over and like rubs her belly a little bit, and she says, "Oh, you got your baby back." So, this is the way life is, and that's why children are great. Let me take a sip of my coffee. By the way, this is a cup I got. Lori got everything. Almost everything in my life is from Lori, because we've been married so long, and I really can't even breathe on my own. And I really am one of those guys that just I really can't. I really can't exist. So anyway, this is one of her mugs, and it says, "Teaching tiny humans is exhausting." And I thought it was a good mug for the show. Teaching tiny humans is exhausting. So hopefully we're not tiny. We might be. Hold on. All right, we're going now. So the other thing I want to lay out before we begin is the weather. And I decided just to go along with it. You know how we talk about the church seasons and holidays, and we kind of go with the calendar, hopefully God's calendar. But we also go with the calendar of the real. What's the most real calendar? The most real calendar is the weather, right? The seasons. And it is dreary here, man. This is hard. This is the time of year when I'm like, why do I live here? And this morning, I nearly didn't do anything. I was like, I'm doing my non-technical morning. I'm trying to be positive. I wrote a prayer, and then I did an errand. And I decided to do. I went out for breakfast, and I found a little place. And I was like, let me find a little place. And I went for breakfast, and then I delayed, and then I went to pay, and the young lady there said, "It's awful out." I said, "It is awful." I said, "Why do we live here?" She said, "I don't know." So that wasn't very positive, but it kind of just it sets the tone. So I'm just gonna go with it, and I was cold, so I'm putting my jacket on. And but I do think it's okay, because you know what? That's the environment we're in. And hope is always relative to the environment, in a sense, right? So we have to find the hope in it and the warmth. And I'm going to start with some politics. All right. I had some really good. By the way, please send me. People are sending me articles and topics that are interesting to them, or emails saying, "Hey, where's this?" So yesterday we talked about the Pope, and we're really going in more and more into geopolitics. And today, I really want to start with an article from Real Clear Politics. Okay, I'm going to share it with you. I like Real Clear Politics, as you know. And when there's so many little things on Twitter or whatever, it's good to kind of go to a broader article. And this is what that is. Okay, so I'm going to share it with you. Say hello to Maria. Hello, how are you? Everything good with you? Yes. Okay, Maria is good. All right, here we go. Everybody's happy to have Maria back. All right, Doge makes math great again. All right, are we sharing? We're good. All right. I thought this was interesting because it just takes a little bit of a different view than as we know, Doge is finding all this wasteful spending. The liberals are losing their minds. I'm not calling them Democrats anymore. and I'm not calling them liberals, okay? Progressives, the insane people. The insane people are going nuts, which makes sense because they're insane, about DOGE. And like as if the problem is Musk, as if the problem is somebody pointing out the tremendous waste, the money going to publications and other countries, and God forbid we ask for something from the other country. We should just give money, just give it away. Pope Francis says we should just let everybody into the country, man. It's just like this is like Disneyland. I want to say one more thing about the whole immigration thing and Jesus. You say, well, some people say, well, we can't live like Jesus said. Yes, we can live like Jesus said. I don't think we have to put Jesus aside in order to handle the immigration border. I really don't. I really don't think Jesus would say, just let anybody in. I don't. I don't think Jesus would, if there was a family of, mother, father, and 3 children, and they live in a little home, and stranger walks up, and that stranger, especially if that stranger doesn't seem to be repentive of past actions and not friendly and sneaking around, I don't know. I do think Jesus would advise the father to just invite him into his home and come sleep there that night with his wife and children. I don't know. I can't say what Jesus would do. But to assume that like this is what Jesus would want, Jesus would just let anybody in and welcome everybody and risk your family and risk your just give it all away. I don't think that's the gospel. I really don't. I'm sorry. I'm not going to tell the Pope what the gospel, but to be honest with you, he's not going to tell me what the gospel says either. In a sense, I see what it says, and I see what the church fathers say, and I see what the official teaching of the church says. And if he wants to change the official teaching of the church, well, then he can do that, and I'll have to believe because I'm a Catholic and I'll be a good Catholic. But until that time comes, I don't see that. I don't see Jesus saying that to people. I think in the situation with the Pope, he should not be involved. He should remind us to be charitable and kind and compassionate. But all this other stuff, the moral, and it wasn't a moral, he did to make an immoral equivalence with abortion and kicking out migrants. He did. He shouldn't have, but he did. Anyway, he's an older man. He's coming from a certain degree of bias, like we all do. And I think he should focus on gentle reminders of that. It's really hard to, I think if the Pope spent his time, more time, reminding us how difficult this situation is. You see, when you use the word difficult, it makes both parties involved. Because if it's not difficult, he's making it like it's not difficult. Just let them in. It's not difficult. Just let them in. This other party, they're the problem. No, if you say it's difficult, then it unites people in the difficulty. And you say, yeah, you really, Pope Benedict, I just read something on X, crystal clear, that countries they have a right to defend, I'm paraphrasing, they have a right to defend their border and to protect their border and to protect their citizens. And of course, we should be charitable to a stranger. All right, Maria, am I getting lost here? Where's Maria? A little bit. Maria says I'm lost. All right, DOGE. DOGE makes math great again. Here we go. Commentary. This is by J. Peter, Peder, Zane. Okay, and there's Musk with his Make America Great Again. President Trump is slapping America in the face. If we're lucky, it will revive our sleepwalking nation. While cramming more action into a few hundred hours than FDR could in 100 days, he has diverted our somnambulant gaze. Well, that's some word. Wow. Somnambulant gaze, like a insomniac. Gaze from the shiny objects both parties have used to distract us from their failure to address our nation's aching challenges. As he awakens us to fundamental problems of governance, Trump has managed to make math great again. I think this is an interesting take. That's why I took it. Okay. The last few weeks have made clear that we've spent far too long talking about the wrong things in the wrong way. It's kind of like what I'm saying about the Pope. Wrong things in the wrong way. New way of looking at things and a new, fresh, candid, clear perspective. Instead of seeing the federal government for what it chiefly is, the world's largest business, spending more than $6 trillion every year, we have turned it into a debating society for emotionally charged claims about woke culture and populism. Both parties, and this is the key, we can't forget Mitch McConnell voted against Tusi. Okay? Can't forget that. It's both parties. It's the ping pong game. Long as the ping pong game goes on, they don't really care who's in charge. They don't care who's in the White House. Long as nobody, now we know really what the prize of that game was. USAID. We know. We see these NGOs. By the way, right? I'm going to just digress for 1 second. I saw this on X. I'm going to read it to you about NGOs, non-government organizations, right? They're non-government. And this quote, listen to this, really cuts to the chase. If cutting government funding shuts down an NGO, it is not and never was a non-governmental organization. Well, isn't that? It's like Logic 101. It's like a syllogism. If cutting government funding shuts down an NGO, it is not and never was an NGO. Because an NGO is a non-government organization. So how could it be funded by government money? It never was an NGO. There it is. It's a chess game. All right. Back to my article. Okay. Both parties have been happy to expend much of their energy demonizing the other, part of the ping pong game. They demonize, but then they hang out at cocktail parties. It's all an act. Have been happy to expend much of their energy demonizing the other because they saw partisan anger as a pathway to power. That's right. And because it is much easier to grandstand on inflammatory talking points than to make the hard choices required to smoothly operate such a massive entity. As a result, we became like farmers, arguing over the best use of their land while their crops were withering. Bingo. That's the other part of the game. Long as they play the ping pong game, they pretend to hate each other. They stay in control. The NGOs that aren't really NGOs are funded. Guess who works at those NGOs? Their friends, their family members, their donors. It's a big vicious. It's a circle. It just stays. Long as it stays, it's a tornado. It's hard to get inside a tornado. It's hard to get in the eye. You got to get through the wall. And once you're in, then you're in. And then you turn around, right? The Wizard of Oz. It just goes on and on. Now something's happened to that tornado. Tornado chaser. Trump's like a tornado chaser. He's chased down the tornado, and he's recruited. Somebody was on the other day. David Axelrod saying how Trump is surrounding himself with these. I'm paraphrasing, but kind of these weak figures because Trump's bringing in. He did a press conference the other day. Trump's just sitting there, let Musk go on and on and on. Of course, they're going to start to say Musk is in control, which is what I said 3 months ago. I said, that's what's going to happen. But Musk, he's chasing down tornadoes. The tornado. Musk is right with him in the Jeep, and now Kennedy confirmed, Gabbard confirmed. We got to get cash. This is really, really good. And McConnell can't stop any of it. All right. How are we doing with time there, Maria? How am I doing? This is why I need Maria. I'm always getting lost. She's like the GPT. What is it called? What do you call that thing? What's that? The device. Okay. As a result, we become like farmers, arguing over the best use of the land while their crops were withering. This is how unsustainable national debt has reached $36.5 trillion, gravely threatening our future. The current convulsions in Europe are offering a preview of what happens when nations run out of money. What Trump and Elon Musk Department of Government Efficiency are making clear is that as much as our perilous financial situation has been bandied about, we have spent little time actually digging into the numbers behind it. Old habits die hard, and Trump and Musk have continued to play the culture war card because that still seems the best way to get people's attention. It's true. So their recent focus on USAID spending has highlighted the multi-million-dollar grants of LGBTQ plus groups in Guatemala and Serbia and $47,000 earmarked for a transgender opera in Colombia. Such line-by-line scrutiny is important, but DOGE's more meaningful work is exposing the shocking lack of oversight and accountability regarding far larger piles of government spending. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this article, and we're going to go from this theme of Musk talking about money and the importance of bringing math back again. The idea of a balance sheet. The idea of the, I remember Joe Biden, about talking when he's on the campaign trail and talking about people having to sit at their table and balance their bank books, as if anybody balances bank books anymore. But that was just all talk, where the government never balances the bank. Nobody's looking for answers. Nobody wants to know where it's going. And what I see here, okay, what I'm going to show you is an example. Look at this. Look at this example where some of the money's going. Now this gets real. Watch this. This is from this is on X. This is from Mario Naufal. All right. This is a counterterrorism expert. U.S. is sending millions weekly to Taliban martyr families. Okay, so we start with Musk and the need for a return to math. Make math great again. And in that article, he talks about, the culture war. They're pointing out the transgender stuff. But as we get to the nitty gritty of where this money's going, has been going, and is going, and Zeldin today had a huge discovery too. Okay. Listen to this. Former CIA officer and counterterrorism expert Sarah Adams, quote, "The plane comes in weekly, 43 million to 87 million sent to Afghanistan. In that 40 million we send each week, we're basically paying welfare to Taliban martyrs' families. Every Taliban member who died fighting us, their family gets a stipend from the U.S. government. Meanwhile, families of Americans who died there get nothing." When I asked if this was ethically correct, one answer was, "It'll stop them from joining ISIS. The Taliban guy is already dead." This is an example. This, of course, the transgender opera and stuff is just ludicrous. But this is infuriating. Okay? They think that providing money to the families of dead Taliban fighters that were trying to kill our soldiers, is going to stop them. First of all, the Taliban fighter is dead, so it's not going to stop them from doing anything. And if they think it's going to stop their families or other children from joining the Taliban later, that's not going to work. While our troops, how many have post-traumatic stress disorder, killing themselves? It's terrible. Are you okay? And you know what? Even if they do it, shouldn't we know about it? Shouldn't the American people approve or not approve this? Sending $40 million a week to the families of dead Taliban fighters. What about that, Maria? What do you think? Huh? Maria can use some. Maria can, I could use some too. All right. But definitely, huh? What is Maria saying? Go ahead, Maria. Yeah, she said, well, if they give us some money, if anybody, give money away, Maria's available, she said. All right, here we go. My next one. It's all Twitter stuff. It's not all Twitter stuff. All right. I got a good article, another good article. All right. So we talked, actually, before I go to this, we talked about, how we talked about Greenland, and everybody's very upset about my talking about Greenland. And I want to bring up Ted Cruz, because he had just a quick little thing on Greenland, and I thought we'd share it because, it continues down this theme of the geopolitics. Let me go. Here's Ted Cruz. Can you see it? All right.
And China has...
Okay, here we go. Maria, can we hear it?
But shifting global dynamics. The geopolitical importance of Greenland makes this conversation one we can no longer ignore. It's a topic of interest to members on both sides of the aisle. Indeed, the idea for this hearing was one the ranking member suggested earlier this year. Greenland has never been some remote island. It holds immense strategic and economic importance. Its location and proximity to critical transatlantic trade routes places it at the center of several global debates. The growing influence of China and Russia in the Arctic region, where Russia has long maintained military assets and China has invested heavily with a clear strategic eye, is a direct challenge to the United States and our allies. This deserves serious consideration and response.
All right, so there's Ted Cruz. What's interesting to me, all right, Senator Ted Cruz on acquiring Greenland, quote, the growing influence of China and Russia in the Arctic region, where Russia has long maintained military assets and China has invested heavily with a clear strategic eye. Remember the eye of resources for technology, resources for batteries and computer chips, is a direct challenge to the United States and our allies. You know, this started out as almost like a joke. And this is what I want to emphasize today. It started as a joke, right? It started as a joke about taking over Canada becoming a state. And it went from a joke to Canada sending 10,000 personnel to the Canadian border to help us and billions of dollars, right? It started as a joke to name the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. Go to Google right now. Go to Apple Maps, Google Maps, Gulf of America. So everybody wants to laugh and everybody wants to say that the guys have it. It starts a certain way and it ends another. Okay? So the last laugh is on the people who don't take Trump seriously. And Hamas better be thinking about 12 o'clock on Saturday, because he said that's when they all need to be released. We shall see. As far as Greenland, it started as a joke, right? And now we know he talked to the Prime Minister of Denmark. We know why it has strategic significance. And now you have Ted Cruz, senator, in Congress, talking about it. You can say all you want about this man named Donald Trump, but man, oh man, tornado catcher. He's catching tornadoes, and he's throwing a lasso around them. It's almost like it's almost like some kind of Greek. We have to like almost write a little Greek myth about this. The tornado catcher in a Jeep. All right, let's go on though. Okay, I'm going to go back to what I was going to do before. So we talked about our counterterrorism. So as we go into the global geopolitics, I really want to share this. This is good. Now, Bloomberg. Okay, this is from Bloomberg. Bloomberg's a good news organization. I mean, I'm not going to say they're not. They're perfectly down the middle here, but you know they're good overall. And this is a newsletter. It's a newsletter that's put out from them, and it's called the Balance of Power newsletter. And you can sign up and you get it. And they do a really nice job of rounding up the big global issues. And this one is entitled "A World According to Trump, Putin, and Xi." Xi from China. Okay, let's go through this. February 12th, 2025. So it was yesterday. Welcome to Balance of Power. It's hard to believe now, but U.S., British, French, Polish, and Ukrainian troops all marched in Moscow alongside their Russian counterparts on Red Square in 2010 to mark the 65th anniversary of the end of World War II. It is a nice little paragraph, and it is a good reminder. When you look at the current state right now of the world affairs, especially what Biden has left, okay, the situation that in Ukraine that the Biden administration just seems to almost went out of their way to make worse. To think that in 2010, so what, 15 years ago, U.S., British, French, Polish, and Ukrainian troops all marched in Moscow. Doesn't say together, but I'm going to say march together, not me as one troop, but together in this event, alongside their Russian counterparts on Red Square in 2010 to mark the 65th anniversary of the end of World War II. It does tell us things have changed since 2010, that's for sure. Vladimir Putin watched NATO troops join that May 9 military parade alongside the German and Chinese leaders. Dmitry Medvedev, then Russia's president, spoke of a common desire to defend peace. Fast forward to 2025. almost 3 years into Russia's war on Ukraine, and Putin's preparing to host the 80th anniversary parade. He has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to join him on the Red Square, and Xi agreed. Will Putin also invite U.S. President Donald Trump, and would Trump go? Okay, so this was written before Trump's call yesterday. If you're not aware, it's amazing. Trump picked up the phone. I put out a tweet on this yesterday. And by the way, follow me on Twitter, okay, at Howie Hain. I like it, and I'm going to spend a lot more time on it. We're going to be posting a lot more on Twitter and Rumble, and we're expanding. We're growing. Okay, but Trump, I mean, the power of picking up the phone. Trump just picks up the phone and he talked to Putin for an hour and a half about many things, and then he puts out a social tweet on about social media about what happened, what he spoke to with Putin, and there it is. And then what does he do? He picks up the phone and he calls Zelensky. This just seems almost like too simple. Pick up the phone and speak to people. It always brings me back to that Mark Twain thing, right? If you don't lie, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. It's kind of like that with if you know where you stand, you don't need advisors to tell you where you are. Right? Trump knows his position. He wants peace, and he wants to do it in a pragmatic way. And he's looking for win-win situations. What's the win-win situation? Get the parties to the table, complex systems, real estate is involved, communication is needed. Mark Andreessen saying that he's a master of both of those, and Trump's also a master of complex situations. And he puts this all together, and he picks up the phone, and he's listening. What does Putin need to get out of this? What does Ukraine need to get out of this? What are we willing to accept? What's in our best interest, the United States of America? Marco Rubio's 3 things. What makes us stronger? What makes us safer? What makes us more prosperous? See how it all comes together? Because it's clarity. Pick up the phone. The power of picking up the phone. We talked about this New York developer mentality. When there's something going, you pick up the phone and you solve the problem. Whether you're running a small shop, there's a problem. You pick up the phone. What's the matter? Okay, and you deal with that problem. Trump is in office. He's picking up the phone, calling Putin, calling Zelensky. So this is obviously written before. And in that exchange, Trump mentioned that they talked. Trump and Putin discussed each other visiting their countries. So this question actually has more meaning now since that. See, aren't you happy I pay attention? Aren't you happy that I'm spending all my time on this thing? Because I can tell you this question now has a different answer. Will Putin also invite U.S. President Donald Trump? And would Trump go? Well, it sounds like he might invite him, and it sounds like Trump would go. The temptation would be strong. Trump's gearing up to push Russia and Ukraine into a quick deal to end the war, and yesterday hailed Putin's release of an American from prison as evidence of Russian goodwill. Success before May 9 would let him travel to Moscow as the president who restored peace in Europe. Putin may have bigger plans in mind. He has long sought a modern version of the 1945 Yalta Agreement, when the big three of Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, and Franklin D. Roosevelt met in Crimea and carved out post-war spheres of influence in Europe. Remember that famous photo? There it is. Okay, Churchill, Roosevelt, Stalin. Okay. Putin agreed last year for a new Eurasian security system stretching from Europe to China. With Xi and Trump in Moscow, he'd have a chance to form a new big three of strong men rulers. Listen, one thing I want to talk to you about something. Do you know what's interesting? We talked about Iran. Okay. And bear with me here. Let me stop sharing a second. Okay, Maria, don't let me get too lost, okay? Keep me in check. All right. The reason I'm stopping is because what's important is you take a breath, right? And it's just not news. It's commentary. And it's commentary coming from where? It's a consistent train of thought, okay? And we've been speaking about Iran. And that's why I'm stopping right now. Because what we spoke about with Iran is you need to isolate Iran. Hamas isn't really the problem. It's Iran is the problem. And we also learned weeks ago, if you follow the show, follow the news, and thank you for following us because you're trusting me, and I'm taking it serious. I'm taking it serious to find what's really essential because not everybody can sit around all day and look at news. So I'm really trying to say, what is the connection? And this is the connection from 2 weeks ago. We talked about Iran is increasing their pace to get a nuclear weapon. That's from UN. And China helping them with their ballistic missiles. We know that Gaza is a mess, and Trump is on that. But we also really know the big picture is Iran is the issue. And with Biden's administration, Iran and China, Iran and Russia were tighter. That's the net result of Biden. He pushed Iran into the protection of China and Russia. And I said on this show, the overall approach has to be to isolate Iran. And how do you isolate Iran? You work with China and you work with Russia. Just like you work with Mexico and you work with Canada and Monroe Doctrine. And you Panama Canal, get China out of our hemisphere. And Greenland, perhaps take that over to seal up this kind of buffer, the moat, if you will, around our hemisphere. You deal with Russia by the way he dealt with it, picks up the phone and talks to Putin. And believe it or not, he's working with China by dealing with the tariffs. This confrontation is really going to lead to peace. That's my prediction. It's going to lead to an agreement that's going to be more substantial. The bridge will be on rock on either side. That's my analogy over and over again. Any arrangement with China right now is not a real bridge because it's not built on anything. So this kind of hostile moment with China is going to lead to peace. That's what I think. A more peaceful experience with China. And if we have a better relationship with China and a better relationship with Russia, and we seal up the Western Hemisphere, what happens to Iran? They're all alone. They're all alone. They have no choice but to cooperate. See how that's all connected? And this very article is talking about Putin's opportunity, perhaps, to have a new version instead of it being Roosevelt, Stalin, and who was it? Churchill. Now you could have Xi, Putin, and Trump. Okay, it's cool. It's cool because it's also repeating history, and we want peace. All right, so let me keep going. Let me share again and pick up where I left off. How are we doing, Maria? Good. All right. Okay. Trump, now this is, I'm going to read the last paragraph and then move on. Putin agreed last year for a new Eurasian security system stretching from Europe to China. With Xi and Trump in Moscow, he'd have a chance to form a new big three of strongmen rulers. Look how this next paragraph ties in everything we've been discussing. I'm really happy about this. Trump covers Greenland, China, and the Panama Canal in the Western Hemisphere. Xi wants to control Taiwan and the South China Sea. Putin aims to restore Russia's dominance of Europe and a superpower status that was lost with the Soviet Union's collapse. When I said I'm really happy about this, I'm not saying I'm happy about all their desires. I'm saying I'm happy how this all is tying together and how I think we really do have our finger on it. And it's good. So I'm going to go down this road. Trump says he gets on well with Xi and Putin, and a pact to reshape global security might appeal to all of them. It would also strike fear into many of the U.S.'s democratic allies in Europe and Asia. All right. So there we are. It's a good article. I think, if you really want to, I do like recommend things. I subscribe to this. So this is Bloomberg, and it's the Balance of Power newsletter, and you just sign up, email, it's free. And you get an email. By the way, nothing's free. Remember that. If it's free, then you're the product. Always remember that. So what they get your email, and you're the product. I remember reading that. That struck me. I'll never forget it. Once again, if something's free, You're the product. Be aware of that. All right. So let me stop sharing and go on. We're going to move into, I think we're going to go into education. Is that where we should go, Maria? What do you think? Yeah. Let me see. Oh, no. Before that, this breaks my heart. Yesterday, do you remember in the article I just read that it said Russia released a prisoner, an American. His name is Mark Fogel. He's a teacher, and he was imprisoned in Russia for 3 years. And Trump got him out. Trump made a campaign promise that he'd get him out, and he got him out. Isn't it amazing? Why couldn't Biden get him out? School teacher Mark Fogel. On a religious sense, because we always talk about culture here, right? Our relationship with our community, part of that's our spiritual life, our religious life. You know what he said sustained him? The rosary. The rosary. I'm going to play something that's a little hard to listen to. It's a little hard to listen to because the quality of the audio, but it's also a little hard to listen to because this is a recording of his call with his family, reacting to the news that he won't be going home. See, Biden was so interested in bringing fame. He only was interested in bringing, people home that would benefit him in the sense of, he brought the basketball player home, and only people that were going to get him headlines. This poor Mark Fogel apparently was just not on the radar. And he's in jail. He's in prison for 3 years in Russia. And I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna play a little bit, okay? And I pick up about the 147 mark. It's hard to hear in the sense of the quality, but you can hear he's in despair. And I want you to listen to it for a minute because it's also a reminder of what people go through, the suffering that people go through. When someone's locked up in a foreign land and you feel like your country has betrayed you, has left you, has abandoned you. So this audio, okay, again, this is Mark Fogel, an American teacher imprisoned in Russia for the last 3 years, said he feels like his soul is dead after he was excluded from last week's prisoner wrap. All right, so it was a prisoner swap. This is in the past. This man has now been released the last couple of days. But this is in the past. This is, I guess, a few months ago. And this is a recording with his family reacting. This is when he finds out he's not going to be released. All right, let me share. It breaks my heart. I'm so happy that he's home. He kissed the ground when he was released, got off the plane, and he kissed the ground. All right. Let me know if you can hear this, Maria, please. Here we go.
A week after their trial, I'm going on 3 years. And next week, 2 weeks. I mean, it is mind-boggling to me. I don't know. It's second class citizen. I don't feel like anybody cares. And if you all weren't working for me, where would I be? I thought about that last night as I just laid in bed all night long. All of a sudden, well, here's the song. People are gone. I'm watching it on TV. And the irony of it, it crushed me last night. And I am just worn out when something like this the other day just occurred. Like it happened on 2 other occasions. It just leaves me without feeling. I know it's hard, but you need to have faith in us. And I think we knew this administration is just not going to be there for you. I don't know why, but regardless of the fact there will be a new administration, it's hard to have any faith that the system will be changed.
I don't. Does this affect you? This man is like he at this point he's thinking he's never getting freed. And did you hear what the wife said or the mother? She doesn't know why this administration. What was the language? I want to hear that again. Go with me on this. Listen, this is sad. Imagine you're an American, you are American, or maybe if you're not, you're from another country listening, and you are taken and put in, you're arrested. And this is what you feel about your country. And the wife says, Vicky, I don't know if it's his wife or his mother. I know it's hard, but you need to have faith in us. And listen to this part again.
It's hard, but you need to have faith in us. And I think we knew this administration is just not going to be there for you.
And I think we knew this administration is not going to be there for you. The Biden administration. Wow. Wow. Huh? Here we go.
I don't know why, but regardless of the fact there will be a new administration, it's hard to have any faith that the system will be changed.
It's hard to have any faith that the system will be changed. The poor guy. I mean, and you can understand why. Did you have faith the system would be changed? I mean, we were hopeful for Trump, right? But I think that if you look at it, you say to yourself, this is, I think it's important for us to listen to, it's hard because the despair in his voice and also the woman on the phone with him. I don't know why they're not supporting you, right? And it's hard to have faith the system will change, but the system has been changed, and he has been released, and he got off the plane. I should have pulled up the photo for you, but you can find it. And he kissed the ground. He kissed the ground, United States, and the religious, spiritual component was that the rosary. The rosary kept him going. And I don't know if he had a physical rosary on him or not, but I have mine right here. Here's mine. This is my grandmother's. When my grandmother died, I cleaned out her apartment, and this was in her nightstand. So I have my rosary. And it's not just for old ladies. It's powerful. It's powerful. And when somebody's in a situation like that where they feel there's no hope. It's important for us to also pay attention to what kept them going, So next time you want to laugh, or somebody wants to laugh at the rosary or some beads, think about Mark, and think about and also the love of his family. They did not quit on him. So I think there's a lot there. There's a lot there. It's getting heavy, but you know what? It hit me, so I'm going to talk about it. All right, next, Pope Francis. I want to talk about this. This is just a little side note, okay? Let me share you this. It's not about Pope Francis, but I think it's interesting that in the religion sense, I saw this morning, and I said, this is interesting. It's posted by, check this out, I didn't realize it until I brought it up this morning, Colin M. Hain, no relation to me. I don't know who Colin M. Hain is. Maybe he's related to me, but I'm not aware of. And he reposted this from William Wolfe, breaking: the Presbyterian Church in America's mission to North America officially apologizes and repents for sharing information that advised illegal aliens on how to avoid/resist law enforcement. I'm going to read you the quote here. Recently, this is from the Presbyterian Church. Recently, we posted links on our web page to external organizations offering a wide range of recommendations and frequently asked questions on immigration. MNA's leadership erroneously allowed the posting of content that advised undocumented persons, people here illegally, on ways to avoid being detained by authorities. We affirm that it is our Christian duty to obey the lawful commands of the civil magistrate and be subject to their authority. Look, and they even cite Romans 13:1-4, Peter 2:13-14. To counsel otherwise is a sin. We confess, isn't this refreshing? We confess that we fell short of our biblical and confessional standard. We repent and apologize. We also apologize for causing confusion and consternation in our church. We have removed all the previously posted information from our website. Isn't that amazing? Actually, I think it's really amazing. It's what we want from our church leaders. If our church leaders can't admit they made a mistake, I mean, who else is more open to forgiveness and repenting and starting anew than our church? or meaning the churches or religions. So this is what Pope Francis should be doing. Look, I mean, and what's funny is that people say, oh, but you can't live like Jesus. And no, you can live like, they're actually citing the Bible on how we should actually pay attention to law, that it's in the Bible, that the biblical verses. You can disagree with them, with their selection of verses. But the point is, there is a biblical argument for following the law and having order and ordered love, family first. All right. So there's the Presbyterian Church. I found it interesting. Okay, let's keep moving. All right. Let's see. We got Mark. We got this. And let's go into education. All right. A kindergarten teacher in California breaks her silence on DEI. All right. What you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play. I'm gonna go on a little Hillsdale. Okay. And then I'm going to come back. Okay, Maria. So I'm going to take a little break and let me play this. Okay. Let me share. And then I'll be back in about 2. Let me see how long this is. It's only a minute. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay. Let me share this and that'll give me a second to, okay. So I'll be right back in a minute. This is from a great course from Hillsdale. All right, here we go.
We all have a common problem. How do you live well? Our well-being, our happiness depends upon how we do that. And the Nicomachean Ethics is the first great book written about that subject, and in my belief, the best book ever written. Why is ethics important?
Because we're trying to figure out how to be good.
Good's important. Every action and every choice and every inquiry we seem to make for some good. Somebody give a simple definition of what it is to be ethical.
Ethical would be to pursue a good life.
And get there, right? The reason this book is to be read is to become good. This is an urgent inquiry. We are the makers of our character. The claim of this book is that this is certainly the way to live well. You can become awesome. Start today.
You can become awesome. Start today. All right. So we're going to go into education, our little transition there, right, with Hillsdale. And I love Hillsdale more and more. If I was young, I'd go to Hillsdale. All right. Here we go. A kindergarten teacher in California breaks her silence on DEI. I thought this was interesting, and it's a good segue into education. You know, I love education. You know, I think that the real answer to so many problems in our life is education. And so we can talk about the Constitution. We can talk about Jefferson and life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. But if our children are not educated in the true classical Greco-Roman liberal arts tradition and learn how to think, how to read, how to write, how to basic math, the art of science, okay, and the science of art, then, there's really no hope. Okay, so schools like Hillsdale are important, and our public education. What Trump does with the Department of Education is going to be interesting. Okay, so this is a sign of this article is going to show what certain teachers have been living under, the suffocating atmosphere environment, and also the freedom that Trump's given them. So let me share. Okay, and here we go. All right. Here it is. All right. Maria, you see that? Okay. A kindergarten teacher in California breaks her silence on DEI. This is by Michelle Bal, B-A-L. All right. And let me see. February 10th, 2025. Okay. Today, during an argument with a colleague about DEI, I was once again called a white supremacist. I am, of course, no such thing. This is the teacher writing herself. What had I said? I dared to say that I agree with President Trump's stance on eliminating all forms of DEI in schools. It's not the first time I've been slandered, and I'm sure it won't be the last. But I've had enough. In the victory, President Trump in this election, I've decided to stop staying silent. Good for you. I've resolved not to be afraid to speak my mind, to say what I believe. to share my views and to voice my disagreements, even if it means being looked at differently or being despised by those around me. The kids I teach deserve no less. Yes, they do. They deserve no less than that teacher being herself. Now, if her being herself leads to situations or views that are just unacceptable in terms of what the parents of those children think, well, then that's a situation they have to work out. But the idea that a teacher can be in line with what the majority, the sweeping majority of voters just confirmed, and that's a problem, is absurd. And the fact that these teachers have had to suffer this soft censorship, let's call it, this idea that you really can't express yourself because you're so afraid of being called names. What does that do to the soul of the teacher when they feel like they're not themselves, that they're wearing a mask? It has to affect their energy, right? The enthusiasm and passion just for life, and therefore their teaching. I am a teacher in Silicon Valley, one of the most liberal places in the United States. At my school and among my colleagues, the dominant opinion aligns with the so-called woke ideology, which is very different from what I believe. For months, I stayed silent. I sat restlessly through DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion meetings, and I listened in silence to insults aimed at President Trump and anyone who supported him. I endured endless discussions about land acknowledgments, skin color, and gender ideology without expressing what I truly felt. It felt worth having a debate about DEI's pedagogical impact on children, but no one wanted a real debate. Then something changed. After Trump's victory in November, I realized I was not necessarily part of a minority. The majority of Americans shared my opinions, and perhaps yet more did, both in our school and in the homes of the families who entrust their children to us. That gave me the courage to start speaking out. The day after the election, while everyone around me expressed sadness and disappointment over Trump's win, I decided to say simply, I'm happy. From that moment on, I have been called names: white supremacist, racist, stupid. It's odd to me that the same people who preach diversity, equity, inclusion have decided to exclude and insult me simply because I hold different beliefs. It seems those principles don't apply to diverse perspectives or ways of thinking. That's a disservice to children. The amount of raw material we convey to children in school, a few historically important artists here, a few composers there, is minimal compared to the reading and learning these kids will do at home with friends and on their own. They therefore must develop critical reasoning capabilities that allow them to judge the credibility and even the moral worth of everything they consume. There it is. That is so good right there. The amount of raw material we convey to children, the raw facts and data to remember, right, is minimal compared to the reading and learning these kids will do at home with friends and on their own. And there's that reminder: with friends. Who do your children hang out with? What are the parents of your children's friends like? Because you can't blame the kids. But if the parents of the kids your friends hang out with or have views radically different, and not that you can't have diversity in views, like she's saying, but if their views are views that are just full of hatred or this closed idea that you can't, you have to think in their orthodox, politically progressive orthodox manner, or you just are ignored and denied and insulted, well, then you have to ask yourself, who are your kids hanging out with? They therefore, the children, must develop critical reasoning capabilities that allow them to judge the credibility and even moral worth of everything they consume. That's why I felt it was important to speak about the Pope, and why even when we respect certain institutions and certain people, that you need to critically think, critical reasoning capabilities that allow you to judge the credibility and even the moral worth of everything they consume. As a teacher, I've observed that DEI does the opposite. It can strip children of those faculties. I strive to teach my students genuine respect and inclusion, regardless of their skin color, gender, beliefs, or culture. In fact, um, beneficent inclusion is their natural tendency. Isn't that true? Children don't really need to be told to be inclusive. It seems to be natural. Children on the playground usually, the little age, right? Especially early elementary school, right? They don't look at skin color or disability. Of course, there's exceptions, and there's always going to be kids that are not nice to each other. That happens too. But in general, kids are very inclusive. They're not looking at these things. The parents are pointing it out to them for the first time, in their little innocent eyes. They don't even see it. They just. I have been a teacher, and I see it. And you know what? I've seen children with physical disabilities. And you know what was so refreshing? Sometimes the kids, they just refuse to treat the kid any different with the physical disability. And that was the best thing for the child with the disability. To not be treated any different. They expected to run the first base. And if you can't run as fast, they just seem to. And you know what there was a specific situation where I can think of where a child who had something with his legs and couldn't run as well, perhaps, as the other children. And he was expected to run, though, and try his best. But I never saw a moment where they were mad at him or disappointed in him or bullied him because his ability to not run as fast, okay, or inability to run as fast. It was just they held him to the same standard of effort and participation. They didn't baby him. I think that right there, when I watched that on the playground and I watched it day in and day out, that taught me something. A good teacher learns more from their students than the students learn from them. Okay. Herd mentality is the default, and that is why I aim to teach my students to speak their minds, to express themselves without fear, and to listen to others with respect, even when they disagree, especially when they disagree. There it is. To express themselves. This is good. You might say this is not groundbreaking, but who doesn't need this reminder? Don't we need this reminder that we need to express ourselves without fear and to listen to others with respect, even when they disagree, especially when they disagree? I believe it's through listening to different views and dissent that critical thinking is developed. I also aim to teach my students that success is based on merit. Whoa, imagine that. And if they want to achieve something, they must work hard for it. Nothing worthwhile comes without effort, and I want them to understand the value of perseverance, dedication, and hard work. Our values lie far more in work than in the mere circumstances of our birth. Above all, I want my students to be free to choose, free to speak, and free to think. This is what I want for myself as well. Freedom is the cornerstone of this country, and it's a principle I will always stand by and uphold. In education, typically slow to change, it is beginning to feel like a new era. Bravo, bravo. Nice job. Michelle Ball is a kindergarten teacher in Palo Alto, California, originally from Milan, Italy. That's a nice little beautiful reminder. I'd be happy if she was my child's kindergarten teacher. All right. Good stuff. And it sounds like that last part really sounds like consistent with the Declaration of Independence, right? The Charters of Freedom. We had a comment the other day. You're talking about the Constitution and you're citing Declaration of Independence. You don't know what you're talking about. Listen, the Charters of Freedom, 3 documents: Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration. Okay. Yes, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness is not in the Constitution, but we tend to tie those 3 documents together, understanding that the philosophy, the moral, philosophical foundation of the Declaration is implied in the Constitution. The Constitution is a legal governmental framework based on the Constitution. And the Bill of Rights is a part that helps make crystal clear the rights that the government cannot step upon. They work together. So you can interchange them. Okay? So I like comments like that because they're learning opportunities. They're opportunities for people to be educated about certain facts. And yes, I could be wrong. I make mistakes all the time. But understand the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Okay? They're like a trinity, if you will, a trinity of our founding. Okay, I'm going to stick with education here and go on another one because I think this, like she's saying, it's like a new era. And I think, if you look at this next article here, let's see, it's I'm just going to touch on it briefly, but it gives us another insight. This is from, let's see, okay, Liberty Nation. Is it Liberty Nation? InGens. Okay, Gen Z. The decline of public education. Even teachers are cutting class. I thought this was interesting. Teachers seem to be having a hard time making it into work by Corey Smith. 2 things must happen for children to learn in public schools. They must attend their classes, and teachers must be there to educate them. Makes sense. Child's present, teacher's present. Yet, listen to this number, 43% of teachers at Chicago public schools were chronically absent during the 2023-24 school year, an issue recently highlighted by the Chicago Tribune. Of all the problems currently affecting children, this might be the one most troubling. It's bad enough that schools are having a difficult time hiring enough teachers, but now some can't even get their staff to show up every day. Is this an isolated issue or a problem that stretches beyond the Windy City? Let's take a look. Education takes a back seat. Chronic absenteeism means a teacher has missed 10 or more days in a school year, not counting vacations and paid holidays. CPS isn't the only district in the Chicago area to experience this trend. Nearly 43% of teachers at Evanston Stokey School District 65 are chronically absent, the same as CPS, and 38.5% at Oak River Forest District 200. This is not new. Since the pandemic, numerous state schools nationwide have had an increasing number of chronically absent teachers. Let's just look at one more. In New York City, during the 2022-23 school year, almost a fifth, that's crazy, a fifth of public school teachers missed 11 or more days, slightly higher than the previous year. Each week in the 2023-24 school year, nearly 15%. Is that in the 15% of Michigan teachers were absent. It must be the whole state. Yeah, they're saying the whole state. In the state of Michigan, 15% of teachers were absent. Last September, Springfield High School and Junior High in Ohio were forced to close for a day because too many teachers had called out. And like many public schools across the country, not enough substitutes were available. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go on. But I think as we look at the article from the kindergarten teacher who's celebrating her newfound confidence to be free, bravo, bravo. We also have to look at the statistics that show how poor the public education is especially in major cities, right? And in minority areas. So the Democratic Party, the progressive movement who wants to continually make race an issue, are running these major cities and are running these major schools systems, and they're creating an environment. We know. I say this to my kid. Whether it's sports, whether it's educate, show up. 90% of it is show. If you show up and you sit in class and you pay attention, 90% of it you probably got an A. You probably got to be, I don't know. You're going to do okay. Show up. Then do your homework. If you do your homework on top of that, wow, now you're there, man. And if you want to do really well, then you study extra hard and you do the extra work, okay? But show up is number one. You have to show up. And the teacher has to show up. I've been a teacher. If you're not there, it's a stability, and you feel it as a teacher. When you come back and you haven't been there, you have to reset. Your manner, your rules, if you have them. Some teachers don't have any rules, but you can feel the I always use the analogy of a bus. The wheels on the bus are shaking, right? The wheels on the bus go round and round, right? The balance on those wheels are off. The bus is shaking. When you're there consistently. And even if you're a teacher, you can't be on your game every day. Because it's a performance, right? It's many ways. You're standing in front of them, and sometimes it's exhausting. But I see that with my wife. I see that with Lori, and I praise her. You know, she's going through this cancer thing, man, and she gets up, treatment yesterday, and she's at school today. I mean, that's it. She's at school today because she's putting those kids first. And she also knows that there's a benefit to herself. First of all, the first and foremost is the kids. But if she doesn't go today, tomorrow's worse because those kids need stability. And the teacher provides the stability, just like parents provide a stability. That's why divorce is devastating. That's a whole nother topic. I'm not getting into whether people shouldn't or should get divorced, but children are negatively affected. There is no doubt about it. And it's the stability factor. Children that move homes repeatedly have harder times. Stability is important for children. Stability of parents, stability of environment, stability of love, and stability at school with the same teacher. And if these school districts are, in a sense, almost promoting, and the unions are promoting it because they're so loose. Everybody's always talking about teachers being underpaid. I don't know. You know, ask the Catholic school teachers how much they pay, or the private school, a lot less. All right. I mean, I'm not going to get into this, and don't, you can send me emails if you're a teacher, but you got to show up. And if the teacher doesn't show up, why would the kid feel compelled to show up? All right. Next one. One more about education. This is a good one. We went from positive, kindergarten teacher, to negative, the absentees of teachers themselves, to wow. Like this, the fact we even have to have an article about this is so ridiculous. But here it is. Washington Examiner. School cell phone bans emerge in red and blue states as usage concerns grow. Could you imagine that? Can you imagine that people actually have to have a policy for people kids not to bring phones? Whoever thought they should bring phones? Whoever allowed this in the first place? Children have phones in school. What are they doing? Are they calling their stockbroker? Why would a child have a phone? For thousands of years, children went to school with no phones. All of a sudden, they have to have a phone. And then they have the phone at the desk. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And now we have to have an article talking about it. Let's see. This is by Jack Burrell. Cell phone usage has exploded in the 21st century, and schools have implemented a variety of regulations to control students being on the devices. But now bans are sweeping the country. The use of cell phones in schools has only grown, and for teachers, it has become a significant problem. As lawmakers push forward laws empowering teachers and school administrators to restrict cell phone use in the classroom, here is why they are being supported and where they're being implemented. I'm not going to go into this. You know why? It's nonsense. If your child goes to a school, I'm sorry, I hate to put it this blunt. If your child goes to a school and they're allowed to have their cell phones out in class, I'm not saying, everybody has their own situation, but you need to really examine what school they're in. I'm sorry. Because if you have administrators who just don't see that as a problem, like prima facie, just common sense, well, then I don't know, how good can they be? All right. My daughter goes to a high school, small school, and the kids bring their phone. You know what they do? The phone is handed over when they walk in. It's put in a place with their name, so it's there, and they pick it up at the end of the day. That's it. You don't have your phone in the hallway during class. This is it's a waste of time to even talk about this. So I'm going to move on. All right, here we go. How we doing, Maria? Good. All right. Maria's very quiet today. You know what? Oh, look at this. I'm going to bring this up. Maria's going to laugh because this is not a news article. It's just me dreaming. You want to see what I dream about? Watch. Hold on. Everybody. All 4 people that are listening, watch this. Okay. The Wall Street Journal. Does an RV rental for $1 a day sound good? Too good to be true? Then you probably haven't heard about relocation discounts, which give travelers steep price cuts on select routes. I saw this. I thought to myself, that's what I want. You see, Maria? That's what I want. I rented an RV for $1 a day. Too good to be true? Question mark. What's that? Maria's talking to me. Go ahead. I think I didn't read. I read a little bit. I think it's because like they need certain vehicles to be like in a certain place for someone else to use it, and they need to get it there. So they used to do this with cars too, and I guess they need this van to go from Arizona to whatever New Jersey, and somebody's got to drive it. So they offer it for very cheap, just to get it there for the other person to actually rent it. I just put this up because I said, if you want to know a little bit about little Howie, this is what I want. You see that little van? That's perfect size right there. I think I need my cat though. I don't know if I can you put a litter box? That gets complicated. I don't know what I do. But that van, I could do the show. I could set up my camera right there, sit outside. Okay, enough of that. But you gotta have a light side of life too. Okay, stop sharing. Here we go. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna play Maria. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna play this because on the show. I mean, we're not on we're not on the FM AM wires. I call it the radio show, but obviously we're on the internet. And one thing I'm learning is that there's no limits, really in time and space. So what I'm gonna do is sometimes we play videos and I give a talk. I talk about it, interrupt it, and then I'm going to also start doing this because I know some people that listen said to me that they like listening to in the background and it goes on in the Apple Podcast or Spotify. By the way, subscribe, like, do all that stuff, please. But I'm going to do this. This is a 15-minute. I'm going to give you a heads up on it. It's a 15-minute video. Okay. And it's posted by Charlie Kirk. And as he said, it's must watch. In Paris, J.D. Vance delivered one of the most morally clear, pro-American, and courageous speeches you will see all about America's global leadership on AI. It's 15 minutes of pure fire. So what I'm going to do, Maria, is I'm going to play it. I'm going to play the whole thing. I'm not going to even interrupt. Okay? So it's like it's a service because, we can. We're not limited here. Unless Maria says no, that I shouldn't. What do you think, Maria? Sound good to you? All right. Maria's going to see if it's boring. That's a good idea. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to play it. Let me share. Maria's the, I used to have these little cards I'd come up with, these little statements. And Lori, my wife, she likes one of them. One of them is we're almost doomed. She likes that one for some reason. And the second one is that I'm on the cutting edge of boredom. The cutting edge of boredom. And this is a video that's on the cutting edge of boredom. I think it could be really fascinating. And I'm going to let it run. I'm going to try not to interrupt. All right. So let me run it. Okay, Maria? Maria will be the judge. If you think it's too long or boring, send an email and make sure you put Maria in all caps so that we know you're yelling at her. Okay? All right, here we go. This is the great J.D. Vance, our new vice president, speaking in Paris about America and AI. Here we go.
The kind introduction, and I want to start by thanking President Macron for hosting the event and, of course, for the lovely dinner last night. During the dinner, President Macron looked at me and asked if I would like to speak, and I said, Mr. President, I'm here for the good company and free wine, but I have to earn my keep today. And I, of course, want to thank Prime Minister Modi for being here and for co-hosting the summit, for all of you for participating. And I'm not here this morning to talk about AI safety, which was the title of the conference a couple of years ago. I'm here to talk about AI opportunity. When conferences like this convene to discuss a cutting-edge technology, oftentimes I think our response is to be too self-conscious, too risk-averse. But never have I encountered a breakthrough in tech that so clearly calls us to do precisely the opposite. Our administration, the Trump administration, believes that AI will have countless revolutionary applications in economic innovation, job creation, national security, healthcare, free expression, and beyond. And to restrict its development now will not only unfairly benefit incumbents in the space, It would mean paralyzing one of the most promising technologies we have seen in generations. Now, with that in mind, I'd like to make 4 main points today. Number 1, this administration will ensure that American AI technology continues to be the gold standard worldwide, and we are the partner of choice for others, foreign countries, and certainly businesses as they expand their own use of AI. Number 2, we believe that excessive regulation of the AI sector could kill a transformative industry just as it's taking off, and we'll make every effort to encourage pro-growth AI policies. And I like to see that deregulatory flavor making its way into a lot of the conversations this conference. Number 3, we feel very strongly that AI must remain free from ideological bias, and that American AI will not be co-opted into a tool for authoritarian censorship. And finally, number 4, the Trump administration will maintain a pro-worker growth path for AI, so it can be a potent tool for job creation in the United States. And I appreciate Prime Minister Modi's point. AI, I really believe, will facilitate and make people more productive. It is not going to replace human beings. It will never replace human beings. And I think too many of the leaders in the AI industry, when they talk about this fear of replacing workers, I think they really miss the point. AI, we believe, is going to make us more productive, more prosperous, and more free. The United States of America is the leader in AI, and our administration plans to keep it that way. The U.S. possesses all components across the full AI stack, including advanced semiconductor design, frontier algorithms, and of course, transformational applications. Now, the computing power this stack requires is integral to advancing AI technology. And to safeguard America's advantage, the Trump administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. with American-designed and manufactured chips. Now, just because we're the leader doesn't mean we want to or need to go it alone, of course. And let me be emphatic about this point. America wants to partner with all of you. And we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with the spirit of openness and collaboration. But to create that kind of trust, we need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. And we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation. Now, the development of cutting-edge AI in the U.S. is no accident. By preserving an open regulatory environment, we've encouraged American innovators to experiment and to make unparalleled R&D investments. Of the $700 billion, give or take, that's estimated to be spent on AI in 2028, over half of it will likely be invested in the United States of America. Now, this administration will not be the one to snuff out the startups and the grad students producing some of the most groundbreaking applications of artificial intelligence. Instead, our laws will keep big tech, little tech, and all other developers on a level playing field. Now, with the president's recent executive order on AI, we're developing an AI action plan that avoids an overly precautionary regulatory regime while ensuring that all Americans benefit from the technology and its transformative potential. Now, we invite your countries to work with us and to follow that model if it makes sense for your nations. However, the Trump administration is troubled by reports that some foreign governments are considering tightening the screws on U.S. tech companies with international footprints. Now, America cannot and will not accept that, and we think it's a terrible mistake, not just for the United States of America, but for your own countries. The U.S. innovators of all sizes already know what it's like to deal with onerous international rules. Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place, but it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation. Meanwhile, for smaller firms, navigating the GDPR means paying endless legal compliance costs, or otherwise risking massive fines. Now, for some, the easiest way to avoid the dilemma has been to simply block EU users in the first place. Is this really the future that we want, ladies and gentlemen? I think the answer for all of us should be no. Now, there's no issue where we worry about more than regulation when it comes to energy. And again, I appreciated the comments of so many at the conference because they recognize that we stand now at the frontier of an AI industry that is hungry for reliable power and high quality semiconductors. Yet too many of our friends are deindustrializing on the one hand and chasing reliable power out of their nations and off their grids with the other. The AI future is not going to be won by hand-wringing about safety. It will be won by building, from reliable power plants to the manufacturing facilities that can produce the chips of the future. Now, at a personal level, what excites me most about AI is that it is grounded in the real and the physical economy. The success of the sector isn't just a matter of smart people sitting in front of a computer screen and coding. It depends on those who work with their hands. Even as robotics will change our factories, it will certainly make our healthcare providers better at treating diseases, but it will also depend on the data produced by those healthcare providers, by those doctors and nurses. I believe it will help us create and store new modes of power in the future, but right now, AI cannot take off unless the world builds the energy infrastructure to support it. Now, it's my view that tech innovation over the last 20 years has often conjured images of smart people staring at computer screens, engineering in the world of bits. But the AI economy will primarily depend on and transform the world of atoms. Now, at this moment, we face the extraordinary prospect of a new industrial revolution, one on par with the invention of the steam engine or Bessemer steel. But it will never come to pass if overregulation deters innovators from taking the risks necessary to advance the ball. Nor will it occur if we allow AI to become dominated by massive players looking to use the tech to censor or control users' thoughts. And I'd ask, if you step back a moment and ask yourself, who is most aggressively demanding that we, meaning political leaders gathered here today, do the most aggressive regulation? It is very often the people who already have an incumbent advantage in the market. And when a massive incumbent comes to us asking us for safety regulations, we ought to ask whether that safety regulation is for the benefit of our people or whether it's for the benefit of the incumbent.
All right. So there we go. I mean, it's got another 5 or 6 minutes there, but I want to stop it there because I think that last point, this is where we have to challenge ourselves and the administration to stay honest and straight. So first of all, Vance is he's terrific. And, his emphasis on that you need energy. First of all, safety is important, but you can't be crippled by this fear of AI. And while we worry about safety, we have to be more focused on growth and opportunity. And one of the things that he emphasized, I think is really important, is energy. You need a lot of energy. And if Europe's going to stay in the game, they have to deal with their energy issue. Okay. And they can't be relying on everybody else. Just like the United States needs to be energy independent. Okay. So the energy component, but then what he just said there, it's what we see in the United States right now with DOGE and, part of it's just tremendous waste. And then you have all the other component, which is just agency after agency that are unnecessary. And but they may be necessary in one component. And the one component that they're necessary is those who are already benefited. The people that are already in an industry or already in a part of government, these agencies help maintain the status quo. And that status quo benefits the people already in charge. And I think what he just said there is really interesting. He said, we need to, United States, the leaders, the government officials in major countries that are dealing with AI, when a player in the AI field, a company, comes to them and says, hey, we're worried about this safety issue, the government really has to ask, is this safety issue an issue of safety for the people, or is it a safety against your business, you losing part of your business? So the idea that, we can over-regulate and be overly concerned with safety, and that concern and safety is really coming from a lobby of the companies that are already, the entities that already have a footprint in the AI world. In other words, in a sense of monopoly, they want to hold on to their piece and not let anybody else in. That's going to be tough, because that's power corrupts, right? So I think it's really important for Vance and Musk. I mean, I love Musk, but he's a human being. Everybody's human, okay? And we all have to look at this. And I think like Vance pointing that out is really healthy. There's going to be a lot of temptation and I think that's what's happened over time. That's why we have so many regulations. And somebody brings a regulation to a politician who's not an expert in that field and says, hey, we better put this regulation out there because of this. But meanwhile, the regulation is really only protecting that company in the industry from stopping a little company from getting in and taking a piece of that pie. All right, Maria, I'm going to go on to the Tucker Carlson thing. Okay. All right. This next thing, I think it struck me. I have a link. Maria and I share a link, and I send her articles that are interesting to me. This one I sent directly to her, like personal one, like the personal one where like, hey, happy birthday kind of stuff. And because I watched it and I was like, whoa, creepy. So it is Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson is interviewing the president of El Salvador. I should do a whole show on his name is I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's Nayib Bukele, Bukele. He's 43 years old. He's been president of El Salvador since 2019. And what he has done there is just really, it's unbelievable. El Salvador was a dangerous place. The economy is awful. And he has just changed it. He is, there's some controversy because he's put a lot of people in jail, and he's really got the gangs were out of control. And, so I'm not going to go too much into him, okay? Because I will at some point. But he's one of these guys. Maria, if you want to dig up some more interesting information on the situation in El Salvador, from bad to good and what happened. But he's in general one of these young leaders around the world, like Javier, the president of Argentina, Milei, or the young woman, not young woman, but the younger woman, where she's in her 50s, Vidal in Germany, or Meloni in Italy. So you have a lot of freedom-loving people who are trying to really bring power back to the people, and along the line of what Trump's doing, just kind of chop away at bureaucracy and corruption and restore. So he's an interesting guy. All right. So Tucker Carlson goes to interview him. And during the interview, Tucker talks about, let's see, I don't want to give it away. Maybe I should, this was posted on by Illuminati bot on X. Okay. And it's a clip with Tucker and the president of El Salvador. And the president of El Salvador starts talking about MS-13. Okay. And MS-13 is a gang. It's one of the gangs that you hear when Trump's Tom Homan, right, border czar, HHS are rounding up gang members. MS-13 is one of them. It's a big gang. It's a worldwide crime operation. It's almost like think of it as like a mafia. And it started out as a small gang, and now it's a major worldwide operation. And they're vicious. Okay. But so the president of El Salvador had to deal with them when he took over power, and it was one of the situations he had to handle. So Tucker, in the interview, talks to him and this is what he has to say about them. And I thought this was like a little frightening. So here it is. The president of El Salvador just told Tucker that MS-13 participates in satanic child sacrifice rituals after he saved the country from the gang takeover. But the media told me that this was supposed to be a conspiracy theory. So here's Tucker and the president of El Salvador talking about MS-13 and satanic component. So let's go ahead and play this.
MS-13 is one of the major gangs.
And they are satanic also.
That was my question. So very
I'm
little.
sorry, I'm sorry.
No. But I would hope you will explain it, because very little has been written in the West about this.
They're satanic, yes.
But actually, literally, can you explain?
Well, they didn't start as a satanic organization. They MS-13 started in Los Angeles, in the U.S., because Salvadorans weren't allowed to sell drugs by the Mexican gangs. So they created a gang that was called the 18th Street Gang, because they basically wanted to sell drugs in a street that was 18th Street over there. But then division started they started dividing themselves and started infighting. So they created the MS-13. And then MS-13 started outgrowing the other gangs, and they started exporting the organization to other parts of the U.S. And when Bill Clinton decided to deport those guys, he didn't tell our government at the time, I'm deporting this criminal. They just send them here. And they came, there were few, but unchecked. At the same time, some laws were passed to protect minors from imprisonment. And of course, the gangs use that to recruit 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. So at the beginning it was, some youth causing harm, assaulting, trying to control their territory, selling drugs, things that are bad, but probably not critical. But they grew, and they started controlling territories. A few years later, they were actually a huge international criminal organization that they have bases in Italy, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, the U.S. Basically, a lot of major cities in the U.S. will have strongholds of.
Right outside Washington, D.C.
Yes, of course. And you have in Long Island and
yes.
In L.A. It's a huge criminal international organization. So they grew, and they started, killing more people just to get territory, or to fight against rival gangs, or to collect debts or money or whatever. But as the organization grew, they became satanic. They started doing satanic rituals. I don't know exactly when that started, but it was well documented.
Yes.
And in our arrest, we've even found authors and things like that.
Yes, I've seen them.
And so they became a satanic organization. And even when you sometimes when you interview gang members that are in prison, they will say, "I'm out of the gang." Of course, they're in prison, but they will say, "I'm not a member of the gang anymore." And when they ask them why, I remember I remember the news outlet that made it this, but it's a very well-known news outlet that made this interview with a gang member in person. We allowed them to go into prisons and do the interviews. And the guy that they asked him, "How many people have you killed?" And he said, "I don't remember." He didn't remember how many, probably 10, 20. He didn't remember. And then they asked him, "And what is your position in the gang?" He explained how he went up in positions, but I left the gang. I said, "Why did you left the gang?" And he said, "Well, because I was used to kill people, but I killed for territory. I killed to collect money. I killed for extortion. But I came to to this house, and they were about to kill a baby. And the killer that had killed tens of people, said, "Oh, wait, what are we doing? Why are we going to kill that baby?" And they told him, because the beast asked for a baby, so we have to give him a baby. So he said that he couldn't resist that, so he left the gang. He's in prison because, he's a killer, but he left the gang because he couldn't tolerate what he was seeing.
So human sacrifice was a part.
Well, in the United States a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, I don't remember exactly, I saw the news that they were going to kill a young girl, or they killed a young girl, I don't exactly remember, because it was a satanic ritual. It happened in the U.S. a couple of weeks ago.
So that's almost never described
No.
in English language press as clearly as you just described it.
No. Which is weird, right?
Well, you sort of wonder why.
Yeah.
If there's a spiritual component that's driving it, why not just say so?
Yes.
But I guess my point is you saw it as that.
Yes, of course. There's a spiritual war and there's a physical war. And the physical war could be, that's the unofficial.
Yes.
That's the unofficial version. The spiritual, if you win the spiritual war, it will reflect into the physical war. So I don't know how to call it, our impressive victory was because we won the spiritual war very, very fast.
Well, that leads me, I didn't
because you didn't have competition. I mean, they were satanic. I think that made it easier.
In your inaugural, and I was listening on headphones for the translation, so I just want to check this. You said, we have achieved this great victory and made this a safe country, and that's the predicate for everything that follows. And the next thing we're going to do in this term is to work on the economy to make it better.
Grow the economy, yeah.
And you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said I have a 3-point plan, and I'm thinking, I wonder what that is. I don't know, start a Federal Reserve Bank? And you said the first point of my plan is seek God's wisdom.
Yes.
That is what you said.
Yeah, I said that, yeah.
Why would that be the first point of an economic plan?
Why wouldn't it be? What should be the first part of the plan?
Well, I think it should be.
Yeah.
But I can't.
And most people would think that, right?
I've never heard any leader of any country say that.
Because they probably forgot to represent the people that elect them, yeah. It's like you ask most of the people that elect the politicians, they say, yeah, that's fine, yeah, I believe that. But then you ask the politician, and he will say, no, that's not. So who is he trying to pandering to? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right?
Do you think
it's a common sense thing to seek God's wisdom?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a prerequisite for wise decision making, I would say.
Exactly. So that's the first part of our plan.
MS-13 was.
Well, there you go. I mean, some things shouldn't be interrupted. I struck me, man. There's so much in that. I mean, first of all, just the awareness of how when you hear gangs there's so many levels. Let's start with the most, street level, no pun intended. So you hear about these gangs, and you hear about the border. And, you have this idea that it's like, 42nd Street, the movie or something, the play, these are criminal operations. They're organized. They're powerful. They're dangerous. It also connects back to the Pope Francis thing. I don't keep bringing it up, but it is what it is. And when you're reckless with the idea of the border and people coming across, and people coming across are involved in this, then you start I had a message yesterday, and he said, somebody said to me, because I made a point about the immigration issue, and I said, a lot of people get mad at the Catholic Church. And when leaders make comments like this about the border, because and then that's when they start to say, well, priests and popes they're not married, they don't get it. And this goes back to that point. When you're a protector of a family, it's like a visceral thing. Your hair stands up on the back of your neck, and you're like, whoa. And when I watched that video, and he's talking about MS-13, and we hear MS-13 on the news, and they're around, and they're the ones part of the people coming across the border, and part of the people involved in the drugs and the human trafficking. The same human trafficking that Pope just last week put out a big thing about. We have to stop human trafficking. You have to stop human trafficking. You have to stop human trafficking, and then criticizes Trump for trying to maintain the border, which is probably the number one way to limit human human trafficking is to control the border, because they have to be trafficked somewhere. So the show is, whatever. To me, it's great. It's great personally, because it helps me confirm how all these things are connected. And so we go from this knowledge of MS-13 and how powerful they are, and we see this young president who's radically changed the nation. And then we see Tucker Carlson, who's Tucker's. I like Tucker a lot, and he can get a little bit wrapped up in the conspiracy stuff, I think, sometimes, but I think it's understandable because there's so much to be skeptical of. And so the satanic part comes up, and the president goes through this story, and I think, do we believe that there's an evil in the world, or are they just bad people, right? And actually, it opens again about the Pope. I mean, he's the one of the spiritual leaders in the world, and is there evil? Obviously, the president of El Salvador thinks there's evil, and that these people are worshiping evil. And I think it's like a cold it's a cold bucket of water on your head. We have to be aware, right? It's a spiritual war. It's a spiritual combat. And as he said, if you win the spiritual war, well, then the war on the worldly level, takes care of itself. And I saw a video the other day, and it was a priest, and he was talking about, I didn't get his name or his title, but it was, I'm just assuming this part, and I think it's a safe assumption that he was an exorcist. And of course that word, exorcist, but let's just say that people are spiritually ill, right? And you could call those unclean spirits or something. And he talked about something, and he said, we get a lot of inquiries from people who need help, and we give them some prayers because we can't help them right away. You got people, and first thing we'll do is we'll send them some prayers that we recommend they pray. And it's a lot of times those prayers help. And if someone's bothered by some kind of uncleanness, and in biblical terms, unclean is it's spirits. That there are spirits, like there are angels, bad angels, good angels, and that these spirits corrupt people. And these prayers help cleanse that. But then he said two things that struck me. He said, you know what? I'm paraphrasing here, but one of the biggest things that helps, and it's very easy to do, and they recommend this to people to do this before they get involved with the actual priest and the exorcist, is that they play Gregorian chant music. They chant, from monasteries. And he said, not very loud. It's not like you play it loud all day in your house. He said a very low volume, but constant in the background. And he said that is one of the most effective things of people being cleansed. And whether you call that cleansing, if you have a problem with the idea of demons and unclean spirits, either way, whatever you want to call it, if the result is the person who's tormented for whatever way you want to describe it, begins to gain peace and composure and loses the anxiety and nervousness and paranoia from whatever, then that's a good thing. And it struck me that this idea that this chanting, which is, of course, monks consecrated to God, praying the Psalms, usually. The Psalms, which are really interesting part of Scripture, right? It's like if you want to know, there's a famous saying, if you want to know the mind of Christ, study the Psalms. I mean, Jesus grew up memorizing the Psalms. The Psalms, to me, are they connect the Old Testament and the New Testament. If you think of the Old Testament, it's much bigger, right? And thicker, many more pages, if you will. It's like the bottom of a figure eight, and the top is the New Testament. It's a smaller circle. And that line where the figure eight, the small circle and the big circle can't touch, right? If it's a circle upon a circle, figure eight, it's like that's the Psalms. The Psalms connect the Old Testament and the New Testament. Jesus is living out the prophecy of the Psalms. And of course, he's the heritage of King David, who is the author of most of the Psalms. So the chanting of Psalms by consecrated people, men or women, In Gregorian chant, it's usually men, but it could be a chant of consecrated lives singing the Psalms at a low volume. And you know what he said the other thing is? Bells. That bells, church bells or bells that are consecrated, have a really huge influence over evil. Demonic spirits can't stand bells and they run away. And it's funny because I have this one and I brought it down today because I knew we were going to do this on the show. See this little guy here? Maria, you see him? Look. So there's a little bell here. You know where I got this from? It's a little monk. Right? He's holding some bread. And Lori and I went to a little outdoor cafe in Maine once, and we were having crab sandwiches. And this was on the table. It was like you go to like a little cafes. It's almost like going to someone's house. It has like little tchotchkes all around. It's like, and this was on the table we sat on, And I just kept picking up and playing with it. And you know what? The waitress at the end, she was the owner, and she said, or she was involved with. It wasn't like just a worker. She was, connected with the ownership of the place. And she said, "Do you want that?" I said, "This? Can I have this?" And she said, "Do you want it?" I said, "Yeah, actually, I do." And she gave it to me. All right. So I took it, as a little monk, I said, "Oh, thank you. Thanks for the crab sandwich." I think I gave him an extra tip. Anyway, so when I taught last year, 5th grade, I'm not teaching anymore because I'm so famous. I'm so famous. My duties, my YouTube podcast duties call me. It's such a demand that I can't do anything else except eat. I've gained like 12 pounds in the last month. Anyway, so I digress. But you see this? So when the kids were really out of hand, they wouldn't get too out of hand because I run a tight ship. I would go. And instantly, they'd all get in their chairs and go posture position, which would be sitting like this. They loved it, man. Kids love order and discipline. I'm going to do it again. You hear that? So when that priest talked about bells, I said, "That's interesting. I got my own little bell here." I'm actually going to ask a priest to bless it. I have a feeling it's already been blessed, to be honest with you. I think there's something special about this. And the waitress that gave it to me, God bless her. Anyway, so I'm going to have it blessed. So between that and the rosary we talked about and the real, we have to realize that there's evil in the world. And I'm going to finish with this thought about the El Salvadorian president that Tucker pointed out that in his inaugural, I guess he was reelected, said that the first thing he's going to do is seek the wisdom of God. Wow. Right? Wow. The wisdom of God. Amen. Amen. I say to you, right? The wisdom of God. I'm going to pull up my prayer from this morning. Okay. Let me pull up my prayer from this morning. And I'm going to end with that. Okay. So let me get it up here. And I posted this morning. And here it is. Let me share it with you. Okay. I share you with my Twitter post here. And this is how I'm going to end. Okay. What happened? Did I share? Okay. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Maria, help me. Okay, there we go. All right, there it is. Is it sharing now? Yeah. All right. So this is my prayer this morning. There I am, Howie Hain. Come on, Howie Hain. At Howie Hain. Follow me. Good morning. Lord, order my days. Remove distractions. Expand my thinking. Give me courage to be myself as you ordain, as you yourself have designed before the moment of my soul's conception. Artisan of artisans, creator of creators, thinker of thinkers, oh, lover of lovers, have your way. Amen. 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 All right. So that was the prayer I began my day with. And it's the prayer that I'll end the show with. Let's all be ourselves and be aware that there's evil, but also be extremely aware that God is all powerful. The only stronghold evil can get is when we don't acknowledge it, or that we forget that God is abundantly powerful. And God gives us little techniques to protect us. He gives us information like that. Be aware of the MS-13 thing. That's real. We've got to be aware of that. Be aware of comments coming from leaders about our politics when we know what we need to do to protect our families and to live out the gospel. And I really push this point, and that we don't need to fall into this trap of saying, well, that's religion and this is reality. No, religion and reality are one. And there's no contradiction in protecting your family and having law and order in the gospel. Okay, we just got to find the balance. It's not easy. I pray for Pope Francis. I pray for his health. I pray that he be blessed today in any way that God determines. And that truth that we pray, like that, we pray for the wisdom of God. We pray for the wisdom of God to live lives that are moving toward perfection, toward God himself. And that all these other things fall away, and that we be tremendously blessed, and that we pour forth and be compassionate and generous and open-minded. I love you guys. Thank you, Maria. Maria's, she's like, you don't realize how important she is. So anyway, we're going to get Maria a microphone soon, and then it'll be the Maria show with Howie. Okay. All right. I'll see you soon. Be good.